Reflections are really the core of motivational interviewing, and they're also counterintuitive, where you respond to a person's statement by taking a guess at what might come next or what feeling is behind the words that they're conveying. So normally, if somebody were to say, "I like smoking," you would ask a question to get more information. Why do you like smoking? And what that does is it can distance the person from their experience, so they can be drawn outside themselves and feel like they're being questioned. If you make a statement that guesses at what might be their underlying feeling or what might be what they would say next, it allows them to keep talking. It allows them to remain within their own experience and continue to explore their feelings with you. So if they were to say, "I like to smoke," and you were to say, "Smoking relaxes you," then you're making a guess at what they like about it. And instead of them feeling like you're questioning them or judging them, they just hear this possibility now in your exchange, and they can respond to it without leaving their own frame of reference. So reflections are a very powerful way for a person to explore how they feel. In motivational interviewing, reflections follow open questions, and a basic pattern in motivational interviewing is once you ask an open question, you follow it with at least 2 reflections. To understand better the function of reflections, in normal speaking, a speaker means something before they speak. Then they say something to convey what they mean. And then the listener hears what they say, and the listener has an idea of what the speaker means. And that's usually how communication concludes. The listener assumes the speaker's meaning and proceeds. In motivational interviewing, you're actually connecting this circle here. The listener is taking a guess at what they think the speaker means instead of making an assumption. And that's for good reason. There are many ways that normal communication breaks down. Maybe the speaker isn't conveying in their words exactly what they mean. Maybe the listener doesn't actually hear what the speaker says, and maybe the listener doesn't interpret correctly what they hear. So reflections are checking back, closing the loop, and making a guess at what's actually behind the words of the speaker. There are 2 levels of reflections. One is a simple reflection, the other is a complex reflection. A simple reflection will add little or nothing to what the person has said. It repeats or slightly rephrases it. The speaker might say, "I'm feeling really happy." And the listener might say, "You're in a really good mood." So that was obvious. There was no risk. A complex reflection takes a guess at what's behind the words, or says what might come next, which is continuing the paragraph. So if the person says, "I'm really happy today," and the listener says, "You were able to achieve the goals we set together last week." Now that could be right or wrong. That's a big risk because obviously the listener doesn't know why the speaker's happy today. But by taking that risk, rather than questioning the speaker and placing a demand on the speaker, they're offering an idea that conveys what the listener thinks is behind the speaker's words. Complex reflections are much more effective than simple. If you feel like the conversation isn't going anywhere, most of the time it's because you're relying too much on simple reflections. You're not contributing anything with your reflections. You're not taking a risk. You're not giving the person something to think about or respond to. And when it comes to reflections, there's a way of learning them that makes it, kind of breaks it down. You first think, the person says, I'm really happy. You first are thinking in your mind, do you mean that you achieved your goals? So that started with do you mean, and then it inflected up at the end. When you want to reflect, you think, okay, let me remove the do you mean, and let me inflect down at the end. So instead of saying, do you mean that you achieved your goals, you say, you achieved your goals. So what I did was I didn't start it with do you mean, and I didn't end it by turning up my voice. I turned my voice down at the end.